He's therefore the protector of human heralds and travellers, merchants and orators. He can move freely and quickly between the worlds. So he can be here in this room, chatting away, and then he can be in the heaven worlds, and then he can be in the underworld. And he has winged sandals that enable this. He's also the conductor of the dead, so when you die, he turns up to conduct your soul on the journey through the afterlife. So you want to make friends with him before you die, is the basic way this works. And, gosh, I mean, you know, I have lots of philosophical questions about these beliefs. Like, how can you have one God doing all this stuff? Like, there's a lot of people dying at any one moment on the planet. How can he be everywhere? If Hermes is responsible for the tunnels of light, where the soul seems to go at death, according to near-death experience research, how does that work? What are those tunnels of light? Is this something that Hermes is responsible for? And if so, how can he do it simultaneously in, like, I mean, you can work out the maths of how many people are dying at any moment. It must be in the possibly millions, I don't know, that are actually dying at any one day, say. And then there are millions also being born. There's a bit of homework to work out before next philosophy club. So how could he be in all those places at once? I don't know. One possible solution would be to say that in the divine world, time is different to ours. So Hermes isn't there all at the same time. He's always in the now. And what the souls are doing is gravitating back towards the primal nowness of the divine world. And therefore, he is kind of there, greeting them as they come out of the tunnel. It's a question also for psychic engineering. Now, there's a new word. I don't think that's a branch. Like, how are those tunnels of light made, and out of what? Because psychic engineering would want to know that. How are these things made? So I don't know. Let's ask Hermes. He'll tell us. He uses the caduceus, the twin snakes going around the staff, as a symbol of his inviolability. As the messenger of the gods, nobody's supposed to injure him or insult him. If you do that, that really is a recipe for going down the ladder, the snakes. After the Renaissance, that caduceus appeared in heraldic crests of different academies. Diplomats used it. So yes, he's quite a deity. I love Hermes. And of course he gave his name therefore to the Hermetic tradition, which is a very profound ancient synthesis of Greek, Neoplatonic and Egyptian mysticism and philosophy. And we have these Hermetic scriptures which came back in the Renaissance, were translated into Latin, came to France and went to Britain, and really made the modern world. You know, people that shout about the West and we hate the West, let's bring it down, Putin types, they don't realise what they're talking about, because the West isn't the West is the East. The West came from Egypt, from Alexandria, from the Hermetic tradition. Napoleon knew this, and that's why he was a Freemason who wanted to go to Egypt. And I've been informed by some sources that he spent the night in the Great Pyramid and came out trembling and his hair gone white. I'd like to know the source of that, because it's given in the wonderful book by Manly P. Hall called The Secret Teachings of All the Ages, which is a sort of philosophical romp through esotericism. And he says that in the book. But I don't know his sources, because he doesn't have a bibliography, Manly. He was a Canadian Freemason who settled in Los Angeles and founded the Philosophical Society there with an amazing library. So if you're in Los Angeles, pop into the library and see if you can find the source of that quote, that Napoleon spent the night in the Great Pyramid, because it's not been given in any other sources I've read. So yes, what's not to like about Hermes? He's also, as Thoth, he's a route through to the African cultures, and I think we shared last week about the Zulu tradition traces itself back to ancient Egypt, and so it's a hope for peace. I think Hermes and diplomacy. He is the god of diplomats, and I think this card is coming to us now saying, let's pray for the strengthening of diplomats all over the world who are working with Hermes energy, whether they know it or not, and that we can get a solution to these ridiculous problems. I mean, what I like about the French and why I'm happy living here is because they were the diplomats of the 18th and 19th century. And although they occasionally were prone to bombast in the form of Louis XIV, bashing on all the Protestants, there was a slip-up there. But I think in Napoleon's era, there was a slip-up invading Russia. He should have just used diplomacy and sold them champagne, and they wouldn't have been so naughty in subsequent history. So, yeah, France makes mistakes, but there's a fundamental notion, and Macron understands this, and French leaders generally, that it's better to solve problems diplomatically instead of with violence. The British know that, and I think I shared last week that I sat on the plane with someone that works in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and I'm hoping to be in touch with David Lammy, Britain's Foreign Secretary, who's desperately trying to use diplomacy to solve the conflicts in the Middle East before they get out of hand. And I've actually just written a letter today about all that. So yes, I think it's come into our cards to say, diplomats are helping, we're doing our best, Okay, and then we've got dear old Eon's turned up. Eon, the queen of the air, who likes to pop in. And she's like Hermes on acid, because he is the lord of cosmic time. She is slightly ambiguous about gender because it's the queen of air. And if we all have different incarnations over many lifetimes, presumably we get to play at different genders. I'm not sure how it works, but I think that's part of life's rich texture and fun. Personally, I'm all for sticking with the one you were born with and enjoying that and not being impatient. Because we all have the qualities, and I think the soul is both, and can play acting at different ones. When I was a kid or a young youth, I used to play in Shakespeare plays. In an all-boys school, I always did the female parts, right? I was the queen or whatever, and it was great fun dressing up in medieval dresses and stuff. But it didn't make me want to become a woman. It's like I can play that role, but I'm happy being what I am. But so Eon is sort of, he's the lord of Time Lords, really. When I was a teacher in Poole Grammar School, my kids used to call me the Time Lord, because obviously in my classes I'd range across the whole universe and back, and as I do in these philosophy clubs. And so Eon is my line manager, really. And he's also the one that Jung homed in on, because Jung realised that he's a very interesting archetype, and it's a symbol for Jung of our desire for completeness, psychic completeness. We want to encompass all the cycles of time. I mean, how does it work? If we go through different reincarnations and we experience and absorb, I'm a Taurian in this life, right? So I'm learning what it is to be Taurus. That energy, strong, accomplished, getting stuff done, grounded, etc. But I'm going to go through the journey of all the 12 signs of the zodiac to really relate to and understand them all. And if we all have to do that, which I suspect we do, probably some of us do it, several times over if we don't get it right the first time, then when you get to the place of Eon, said Jung, is you've mastered all of the archetypes. You've become one with cosmic time and space itself. So Eon is the god of enlightenment in some ways. I mean, I wonder if Einstein knew anything about all this. I mean, did Einstein meet Jung? Did they correspond? Did he know about the archetypal energies of time and space? And if not, why not? I've just watched, again, Oppenheimer, a great movie, which I saw in detail twice now. And the first time it was in a big movie theatre, I couldn't take it all in. Second time on video, you can stop and pause and think and rewind. And there's a brilliant conversation at the very end between Oppenheimer and Einstein. Basically, Einstein saying, okay, you've unleashed the genie out of the bottle. I don't think we're going to be able to put it back. You know, like, let's go and deal with the consequences. And towards the end of his life, Einstein worked with Bertrand Russell in the Pugwash movement, trying to bring scientists to stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons. And I've carried on with that, with Philosophers of Peace. We were inspired by all that when we were founded in 1990s. Well, initially in the 1980s, but to try and stop the Cold War. So I think if we ever get to a place of peace, and if we can get Russia and America back to diplomacy through Hermes, signing peace treaties again, which is what I want, and get China involved, and get Britain and France and the other nuclear weapon powers, we can then head off global catastrophe. And I think that's what Ian wants. He wants our knowledge of physics, time and space to become something to celebrate life, not to destroy it. Why should we use knowledge as destruction instead of knowledge as life affirmation? We talked earlier about power and knowledge. To me, it's a foolish kind of power that destroys. It's a wise power that builds and creates and loves. And that, to me, is what these two cards are saying, is like, hoy, mankind, you know. Use your diplomacy to create love on this planet instead of mutual destruction. And get the brilliant Russian thinkers, the great Chinese thinkers, the great American, European, British, French, let's all work together. Islamic, you know, Iranian that I talked about earlier, and Jewish. There's so many brilliant minds on this planet. If we all work together, just think what we could accomplish. If we did a Manhattan Project for peace together, you know, instead of creating something that can blow up a city, we could create something that would bring peace to the cities of the world. That's what I want, and that's what my World Intellectual Wisdom Forum is trying to do. So I think that's what these cards mean, in my reading anyway. Any questions, comments?
I found a loop with your introduction with Levi and the Roman Empire.
Right.
As far as you talk about tyranny coming, and it looks like power has two sides. At least one can lead to paranoia and tyranny, because you are afraid of external stuff.
The other person will steal your
you
power.
want to protect yourself. That's
Yeah.
why you build weapons. For example, Israel. They use their intelligence in some cases to protect themselves.
Yeah, that's what the theory is. So
Yeah.
they build a wall.
Yes,
For example,
and that why do we need to protect ourselves? It's I'm always surprised by Christ, because his example is beyond human understanding. As he said, if someone blow you up here, just show the other side. And we are very far from that.
Still, yeah. Yes, he was speaking from an elevated state of consciousness, enlightened consciousness. I mean, and no, I hear what you're saying, and I think power has that that dual quality and ambiguity. On the one hand, it's necessary, and on the other hand, it's a danger. I'm going to finish there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.